Okay, team, we're going to finish up our rather long group of information on bacteria and viruses with the HIV virus, which is HIV stands for Human Immunodeficiency Virus. And you can see a picture here. One thing about HIV is that it is an RNA virus, not a DNA virus. We mentioned before that some viruses contain RNA and some contain DNA. So let's get started. We might just start with some basic facts about HIV because there's a fair amount of misinformation, I think, out there regarding the illness. The virus, in terms of what would be considered high risk, at the very top of the list is IV drug use, where you have direct blood transfer. And so when you have drug addicts sharing needles without treating them or sterilizing them, basically you're sharing blood. There's blood on the needle, you stick it in your arm, and you get the person before use blood. And so this really is the single highest risk factor for HIV. Unprotected sex of any kind is considered a high risk factor, but especially anal sex. And this just really has to do with anatomy and the fact that the virus is in the semen and that, you can have absorption of the virus in the anal canal. Okay. It is easier for a male to give it to a female than vice versa. And again, this has a lot to do with anatomy. The vagina is a mucous membrane. It's somewhat of a sponge. So even vaginal sex is, higher risk for females due to the fact that the virus can be in the semen again and can be absorbed through the vagina, through the mucous membrane. The penis, not so much. It's not really a mucous membrane. So you could imagine there would have to probably be some kind of lesion on the penis, an open sore, which would then allow the virus to enter. Because of this, other STDs predispose people to HIV. For example, herpes. If you have a herpes lesion on your penis or your vagina, this is an open door, so to speak, to the HIV virus. In terms of infection rates, this study is somewhat dated, but I think it still applies. The government was very curious, specifically the US military. They were very curious about infection rates among likely candidates that would be entering into the military. And so they had this huge sample size of 3 million individuals. Now you could imagine 3 million individuals, that's a big sample. And these individuals were all between the ages of 18 and 21. So, these are most likely aged individuals to enter into military service. The location of these individuals, they all lived on the eastern seaboard between New York State and Virginia. And now here's an interesting thing about this next little bit of data here. They're kind of pre-biasing their data from the get-go, right? All of these individuals were high school graduates. They had never been arrested. And so if you think about this, what could being arrested possibly have to do with HIV? Really, it has more to do with IV drug use. If you are an IV drug user, you have most likely been arrested. It's just the realities of being addicted to heroin or cocaine and shooting it up. You'll do whatever you need to do to get the drugs, and that often involves theft and things like that. So, there's a pretty strong correlation between being arrested and using IV drugs and being arrested. They also gave them a questionnaire, and one of the questions in the questionnaire was, had you ever engaged in male-to-male sex. And if they checked yes, then they were eliminated from the study. So none of these individuals that made it into the study were, at least on paper, admitted to having had anal intercourse with another man. Okay, so, what did these researchers expect to find? They expect to find an infection rate of less than 1%, and they didn't really know aside from that. That was the reason why they were doing the study in the first place. So if we look at the results, we found, or they found, a 3% infection rate across the board. So really more than 3 times higher than what they had expected. What does this mean statistically speaking? If you've had sex with 20 random people, you've probably had sex with someone HIV positive. Now, of course, this is statistical, and so, we can't guarantee it one way or another. It also doesn't mean that you contracted HIV. It simply means that you were likely exposed to it by these individuals. Okay. What can you do to protect yourself? Well, sorry about all the exclamation points, and I'm screaming at you here. If you are addicted to drugs, first and foremost, seek help. Try to get unaddicted to them. This presents its challenges. Using clean needles, obviously, needle exchange programs have been beneficial in helping to prevent the spread of bloodborne pathogens and diseases. The problem really is that if you are a drug addict, you're probably not super concerned about using a clean needle, because there again, you're addicted to drugs, and what do? You want your drugs. And so rather than thinking about the needle being clean, you're more likely thinking about getting the drug into your vein. Okay. Sex, abstain. Well, okay, yeah, if you don't have sex, then you're not going to get a sexually transmitted disease. That should make sense. Unfortunately, or for better or worse, I guess, humans are kind of hardwired to want to have sex. It's part of our nature. And so, abstinence is just simply not an option for, I would say, most adults. There's this other crazy thing, y'all. You can actually meet someone that you really like and just have sex with them. It's called monogamy. And so if you are monogamous, and here's the catch, though, your partner also has to practice monogamy. It only works if your partner does it as well. And yes, there have been cases where individuals have unknowingly passed HIV on to their partners after having an affair with someone else. So you have to trust your partner. But if you are monogamous and your partner is monogamous, there's no way you're going to get an STD, assuming neither of you have one to start with. And so what does that mean? Well, you meet somebody, you like them, and you're like, I think this is going somewhere. Go get tested, drag them down to the health department. Those people down there will test you for everything. And of course, it's anonymous. I would hope that you would share the results with your partner or potential partner, but they won't actually know unless you tell them. So these are ways that we can prevent the spread of all sexually transmitted diseases, not just HIV. Okay. Where did HIV come from? Well, there's a lot of debate on this. Most likely, it is a mutated strain of a virus known from the African chimpanzee, which is called primate immunodeficiency virus. And so, we believe that this virus mutated from chimps and spread to humans. And you could imagine a time when humans were hunting chimps for food or having interaction with chimpanzees where this disease could have made its jump from the chimpanzee to humans. We don't really know how long ago that occurred, and we'll talk a little more about some theories. Product of viral warfare, there's just really no evidence to support this. It's one of those conspiracy theories that somebody thought up. Would HIV be a good product of viral warfare? Not really, because it takes forever to kill you. And so if you want to use something in viral warfare, you want to use something that's going to kill you quick. I think an Ebola would be a better choice. Spread across the globe by a single man. Well, that is also kind of a myth, but there is some truth to it. There was a gentleman that was a French airline steward. He lived in Canada, and he worked for Air France. And so he was homosexual male. He admitted to having many sexual partners. And so one of the scenarios would be, he would, because he was an airline steward, he might fly from Canada to Rio de Janeiro and have a layover for the weekend. And he admittedly would have sex with 15 or 20 men and then fly back to Canada. And then maybe the next weekend he was in Paris. And so, they have traced some of the spread of HIV to this one individual, but the reality of it is it would have spread without this one individual, most likely. Okay. As far as treatment options go, they have found that using mixtures of antiviral drugs are very effective at treating if they're administered at the onset of disease. So if they catch the disease early enough and you begin taking these antiviral drugs daily, you believe it or not, now an HIV positive individual where it's caught early and they take the drug regimen has the same life expectancy as a non-HIV positive person. So they've actually gotten the life expectancy up to what would be considered a normal life expectancy if you consider taking a handful of drugs every day normal. And, compare this though to when HIV was first discovered, where it was a death sentence, there was literally no good treatment. And so one thing to consider about these drugs is that they're very expensive. You might be taking $1,000 or $2,000 worth of drugs every month. So, this is something that is difficult in third world countries, and in third world countries where people live in poverty, this is where HIV is still in epidemic proportions: Africa, Asia, parts of South America. So, keep that in mind. They are also using antiviral drugs prophylactically. What does that mean? Well, it means if you don't have HIV, but you're very sexually active, particularly if you're homosexual and you're engaging in anal sex with men, you, as a preventative, a prophylactic, you would take these antiviral drugs. What they have shown is that if you take antiviral drugs and your HIV positive partner is also taking antiviral drugs, then the rate of transmission of HIV is extremely low, maybe less than 1%. And so this is a way to actually control the virus among susceptible populations. Okay. Well, that concludes this unit on bacteria and viruses. And so, I would say, you can start reviewing this information at this point. I hope you've enjoyed the presentation, and I will see you next time. Have a great day.